of It's More Than Just Food. So I hope you're doing great, and thank you all for following through and being part of this for this 3-day masterclass. If you remember from day one, it was a focused point on trying to associate why, when, what, and where. And what are the foods that you are triggered to eat? Why are you triggered to eat them? Is it an emotional connection? What is it that makes you do it? And then yesterday we went through several different aspects. There was 8 components into that as to finding out, what it is, when it is, what certain foods is it that you're going to, and what is it that creates that space for you to direct your energy to those foods. So emotional eating is a very, very complex scenario. Really, it affects so many women and men, but more women than men in our world as we know it today. And that's due to social conditioning and also what we see on the gram, what we see on Facebook, what we see in magazines, and what we see in advertising all around us. And is it something that we see that makes us feel inferior within our body, that makes us either disconnected or too connected to food and our emotions? So that's what the 3 days is about. So as we're coming to day 3 now, there is so much still to share, to really teach about. But the first thing about when you have an emotional connection to food is finding out the reason why and being open to admission. That was the biggest part for me, is I never wanted to admit it. I always tried to hide it. And when you get down to about 42 kilos, it's pretty visible to see that there is an issue with food or my disconnect to it. So from a little bit of a background, going from 42 kilos as an anorexic, being put in hospital, to then transferring that into a binge eating cycle with bulimia as well, which saw me double my weight within a 6-month time frame. So that has massive impact, not only on your subconscious, not only on your kindness to yourself, your self-love, your self-worth, but also affects so many other aspects of your life, your relationships, your career. It continues to go on and on and on if we don't take it and control it. And that's part of the thing of emotional eating, is not being able to control it, because other things externally will allow us to deflect our focus. So as we spoke about yesterday, if it's something that's an emotional trigger that allows you to step into that phase where you want to eat food because you feel that it's a comfort food, you've got to associate the why. Why are you doing it? When do you do it? Is it because of something that somebody said? Is it a situation or an event that's coming up that makes you feel that way? So that is about how do you associate it, and how much of your life is it controlling you when it's more of the external factors that drive you to eat emotionally. And it's addressing all of those. And as I said, it's really, really taking hold of it, owning it, seeing that there is maybe some elements of issues that are within you and what are the circumstances, and then accepting it. And accepting that you are allowed to ask for help. You have permission to seek help. This is not something that is you shouldn't be embarrassed about it. You shouldn't be ashamed about it. It's your vulnerability about owning the fact that when you have situations that go on in your mind, that you need help, you need support, you need guidance with it. And that comes down to being mentally well-being as well as healthily well-being. And if you are struggling with emotional eating and a disassociation to food, then that can absolutely affect your psychological aspect of life and your mental well-being as well. So we want to have an overall well-being for it being more than just the food. So what I want you to focus on today, as we've been through day 1 and day 2, is day 3 is about accepting it, disassociating it, welcoming it, and then releasing it. So if any of the day 1 and day 2 have been relevant to you, then you need to accept that that's what's happening. You need to accept that that's happening within you, to you, and those situations you are accepting that that's what happens, when they happen, why they happen, and how they happen. And then you need to disassociate from it. Now, this is one of the hardest things, and this is the thing that takes practice. It's disassociating those emotions, the external emotions, the things that have happened around you, and being able to remove those factors that may take you towards either eating or not eating. And we've gone through the various levels of eating in the previous 2 days. And then you need to be able to welcome it. So you say, thank you, you are here. I acknowledge that you're here. Now I need to be able to release you. So you've had a shitty day at work. You're stressed beyond any comparison. You haven't eaten all day because you've been too stressed. And then what you do, you may stop off on the way and buy whatever foods you feel are going to comfort you. So you welcome that that's the situation that you feel, they're the cravings that you have. You acknowledge them, you accept them, and then you need to release them, because then you need to move into the aspect of, okay, I see the pattern here. I see what's happening. It's now time to let that go. If you remember from yesterday on the 8 points, it's how does it make me feel during that time? How does it make me feel if I eat that food that's been triggered by something externally? How am I going to feel in 2 hours from now? And how am I going to feel the next day? Now, this all sounds really easy in principle, but when you're practicing it, sometimes it can be hard. But the more that you practice anything, especially this, when it's the emotional connection and how it makes you feel physically, the more that you practice the feeling of well-being and great feeling of goodness, the more you will be able to disassociate from that behavioral pattern. Now, that sounds pretty simple, right? But it is about weighing it up. That's why we spoke on day 1 about maybe keeping a journal and seeing what your triggers are and seeing when those associated triggers happen to you. Can you keep a journal on it? Does it happen daily? Does it happen weekly? Does it happen monthly? Does it happen just at the time of the month where you can't manage your emotions and feelings and so on and so forth? So keeping that journal and looking back over it really does give you a good picture of how you are responding to external factors within your own body. And remember, you're in control of your own body. You are able to say yes, you are able to say no to things that do or do not serve you well. You are able to say, yes, this makes me feel good, I welcome it, I accept it, I appreciate it. And you are also welcome to say, no, this does not make me feel good. I do not wish to have it. I have permission to reject it, regardless of the situation. And this is sometimes can be peer pressure as well, especially in social circumstances, that you may feel pressured to eat certain foods that do not make you feel well. You may feel the pressure that it could be in a social situation you just mindlessly eat because you're trying desperately just to be there, but really, really don't want to. So, give yourself permission. If those situations don't make you feel good and you know you're going to have an emotional connection to any food that's been served, either eat a nourishing meal before you go or avoid going. Or just avoid eating what's presented to you and take a step back and breathe. Now, that's something different. We're not going to talk about breathing right now, but we're talking about how you can disassociate, welcome it, accept it, and also say goodbye to it. So what I want you to remember here is you've got to give yourself permission to evolve. Anything related to food, our bodies, the way we eat, the diet word, most people do not want to address it because of fear of either failure or not succeeding or just having a relapse. And the thing is, the more that you become empowered, the more that you evolve as a person. And remember, we're always evolving. If we're not evolving, we're dying. So we have to be able to evolve each and every day and understand our body a little bit more. And that comes into intuitive eating. So that again is something different that we're not going to talk about today. But listening and tuning into your body, once you've given yourself permission to evolve and to move away from what's affecting you, and moving away from external factors that are affecting your internal life and well-being, then you have permission to move forward with your life. So allow yourself the opportunity to try new things, to try that way of thinking that, okay, You've done day 1, you've done day 2. What is it that brings me to this point that I can either say, I accept you, I accept that emotion, I accept that feeling, but today I'm not prepared to put myself through that sabotaging effect of eating that food that's not going to make me feel great. If it makes you feel great, then that's great. Stay with it. Nobody is saying you should not do these things. It's about how do you feel. Tap into how you feel. You want to feel great. You want to feel on that high vibration. If you're eating stodgy, crappy, heavy, rich foods that's not giving you the good vibrations, and that's when you need to move away from it. That's when you want to say, does this make me feel well? Am I enjoying it? Is that my intuitive sense of eating? So, and that builds your confidence. That builds your confidence with your self-esteem as well. It allows you to be more present, because the worst thing that happens is when you feel these external factors are affecting your internal physicality and your internal well-being on a cellular level, then you're not able to move forward with it, and that can hold you back in many aspects of life. Remember, if your food is bothering you and you're recoiling from certain situations and circumstances, then how is that affecting the rest of your life? Not just with what you eat, how you eat, but what you do each and every day. So I want to just put that in. I've said give yourself permission, but I also want to give yourself permission to forgive yourself. So if any of these 1, 2, and 3 days have had any sense of they've hit you, you've listened to it, you've realized that's me, that's what I'm doing, then I want you to just give yourself permission to forgive yourself for what's happened in the past. Forgive yourself for leaning into a behavioral pattern with food that hasn't served you well, that's taken you to the point where you feel uncomfortable, you're not being body kind, you're not giving yourself self-love, and you're not giving yourself the nourishment that your body really needs to function on an optimal level and a higher vibration. And that's what we want, is the higher optimal vibration for you to live your best life, and knowing that food is not the enemy. And your thoughts, you are what you think. You think things that aren't necessarily real, but you need to give yourself permission to forgive what's been in the past and be able to step forward so you can really live your life fully. Love the food that you eat, love the body that you live in, and embrace each and every part of you. And what I want to just close on here right now is look out for signs of fatigue as well. So if any of these 3 days has resonated with you, look at the signs now. Are, do I get tired at certain times of the day? Am I constantly tired? Am I just giving myself such a sabotaging effect of not loving myself enough to take care of myself and eating what I need to eat and nourishing? And am I just doing the things that affect me from externally? So what am I doing to myself that I really need to move away from? And I want you to consider just listening to your body. Consider what that feels like, to know that you can tap into it and understand it a lot more. And I want you to know that you always have permission to evolve. Always. Each and every day, every person is evolving. We renew on a cellular level each and every day. What doesn't serve you, remove it. What brings you joy and happiness, bring more of that into your life. And that will make huge changes for each and every day. If something is not bringing you joy, how can you change that situation? If your work is stressing you out, or you're not enjoying it fully, it doesn't give you that sense of gratification and sense of, just enjoyment of life, then what can you do to change that? And remember, everything is changeable, everything evolves, but come from a place of gratitude from where you are right now, knowing that if you have been in that pattern where the way that you've eaten and circumstances have affected you, just be grateful for that lesson and know that you've learned from it, so you can see that pattern of behavior. And it's not just about the food. It's never just about the food. It's about what's triggered it initially. So that's what I want you to think about. I want you to think about the day 1, the why, the where, the when, the how, and day 2, all of the 8 points that may be the way that you eat and the patterns. I'm not going to list them all right now. And then today is to give yourself permission to evolve, give yourself permission to forgive yourself, and know that you can accept, you can disassociate when those triggers happen, you welcome them and you release them, and keep that journal for a good 7 to 14 days, if not 30 days. It's not a food journal. You don't have to write down everything you eat and when you eat. It's how you're feeling, and are there triggers that take you to the point where you're eating something that you're not really enjoying, or how it makes you feel in a couple of hours. So I hope that all makes sense to you. It is such a small nugget of a 3-day masterclass about how to connect to your body, how you eat, when you eat, and understanding your body a little bit more. These things where you have anything to do with food, whether you want to lose weight, whether you're not feeling well, whether you're underweight. The last thing that you need is to feel that you're not comfortable and confident. And I know from that place, that heart-centered space, when I was in my worst state, I didn't want to address it, so I would hide it. Always hiding it, and I didn't know who to reach out to. And you do not have to do this alone, because remember, if this is something that you're doing alone, it affects your mental well-being as well. And optimal health, vibrancy, and a balanced way of living is what we want in our lives. Thank you so much for taking part in the 3-day masterclass of It's More Than Just the Food. Have a great afternoon.